Welcome to the Let's Feel Good podcast. I'm your host, Annie. After nearly a decade of asking, why don't I feel good? I ultimately discovered the answers through simple changes to my daily habits. I've spent years healing myself and investing in health and wellness companies tackling the chronic disease epidemic. Along the way, I realized something important. True health isn't built through cold plunges, IV drips, or $30 smoothies. It's the small, everyday choices that add up, shaping both how we feel today and our long-term health. Let's Feel Good is here to keep it simple, giving you practical tips and swaps that compound into a lifetime of vibrant health. Thanks for being here. Let's feel good together. Welcome back to the Let's Feel Good podcast. I am so excited to be here today with Brittany, a human design reader and writer whose journey to alignment is such a powerful example of trusting life's timing and embracing change. Brittany's story is one of transformation, from exploring different careers to hitting moments of uncertainty and surrender, all of which ultimately led her to her purpose in human design and writing. Today, we'll talk about what it really means to surrender and trust your path, how to move through the tension that often precedes clarity, and how human design can serve as a tool to help us find alignment in our careers, relationships, and our daily lives. We'll also dive into what human design actually is and tangible ways that we can all start applying it to make decisions and feel more intuitive and authentic to who we truly are. I am so excited to have you here today, Brittany. This is going to be such a fun conversation. Your story is so fascinating. I'd love to just start from the top. If you can,
Yeah,
briefly introduce yourself and give an
sure.
overview of your background and what led you to your work today.
Sure. Oh my gosh, that just made my heart just burst right open. I'm so excited to be here, Annie. You're just so sweet and just wonderful. So thanks for having me. Well, I guess there's so many places that I could start from, but I think that the main thing that I want to start with is that I decided that I wanted to be an actress when I was 12 years old after I saw Buffy the Vampire Slayer and decided I needed to be Sarah Michelle Gellar, honestly. But yeah, I kind of set that in stone as a very young person and then proceeded to stick to that dream with like laser focus because actors will understand this. From the time you decide you want to be an actor and go to any sort of acting class, an acting teacher's favorite thing to tell you is that it needs to be the only thing that you want to do with your life. And, if there's anything else you want to do, go pursue that because it's so hard and it's blah, blah, blah. And so, really and truly, I mean, it does feel, and probably just in retrospect, a little bit like a brainwashing because I think in the middle of it, it's like, I'm doing it. But so I pursued acting all through high school, of course. And in college, I majored in drama and then went and was an apprentice at the Williamstown Theater Festival for the summer after college and then moved directly to New York City. I was in New York City for a little over 5 years and then moved to Los Angeles, all the time pursuing acting and writing and having very little considerable success, right? I was constantly feeling, I think, behind. And again, everything hindsight 20, it just felt like I was constantly waiting because I was literally, you're waiting for an agent, you're waiting for an audition, you're waiting to book something, and this idea that your life could just turn on a dime from being the starving artist to being, the famous movie star, whatever it is. I subscribed to that dream for a very, very, very long time. Until I was about 34 to 35 years old. And this is where my real personal development journey started. Right before I turned 35, it just felt like a very significant age. I'm not sure why 35, even over 30 felt, I don't know, it just felt like very adult. And I had done in the past, I've always been a very spiritual person, and have always been sort of, drawn to things that would probably be considered more of the woo-woo, tarot, astrology, law of attraction, things like that, right? And so anyway, when I turned 34, I think that I read You Are a Badass. I think that's about when that started to become really, popular. And I started meditating and only about 5 minutes a day, but meditating every day. And that sort of led into a more sort of serious meditation practice, which made me very aware of the way that I was talking to myself. So this is, again, 34-year-old Brittany who realized that for the entirety of my life, from probably when I turned about, 9 years old until then, I was constantly telling myself how fat I was. I was constantly wondering when I was going to have enough money, when I was going to have a boyfriend. I was obsessed with finding love. But it was always, I can't have that until fill in the blank.
Mhm.
I'm thin. It's all of the things that we've all been sort of conditioned with. Anyway, around that time when I turned 35, also discovered To Be Magnetic, which this is at the time when I was in Los Angeles. And I think it actually was a bigger deal in LA because often I assume that people know what To Be Magnetic is. It's like a manifestation program. And they started talking about human design just to sort of tiptoe into my human design journey. But so this was back in around probably 2018. I started to do the To Be Magnetic program again, which is all about manifestation. It's a lot about uncovering shadow and inner child work, doing a lot of like the deep dive digging. And yeah, I think that it just started to really get me in touch with, like I mentioned, the way that I was talking to myself, and also that I genuinely wanted to be happy, like now, and that I didn't want to feel like I was waiting so much anymore. And at that time, this is actually something that I was sort of piecing together, thinking about this podcast. I remember I officiated a wedding for a friend who's from Atlanta, a friend from Atlanta, and it was in North Carolina. And I was chatting with some of her friends at the wedding who had always known that they would move back to Atlanta after having, moved away to sort of do their thing. Me being I'm going to be a famous actress, obsessed with that storyline and committed fully to that, thought I could never move home because it would be giving up. It would be the cliche, oh, now I'm just going to be the high school drama teacher, which nothing wrong with that. It's amazing. But you know what I mean? I was just like, I can't do that. And I went to this wedding and I was talking to a friend who was about to move back to Atlanta, and it hit me just right in the chest. I was like, oh my God, that sounds so nice. That sounds so nice. But back in Los Angeles, I had finally found like my perfect apartment. I was obsessed with it. Like I had just adopted my dog from my like best friend, and like just all these things that were technically happening that were like good in LA, but still this just like feeling of, I really would love to move to Atlanta. It was almost like I wish I could move to Atlanta, which at the point when you're like, well, who do you need permission from? You know what I mean? So cut to 2020. This was January of 2020. It was just that idea had been brewing for, 2 to 3 months. And finally, honestly, I did a meditation for clarity and came out of that and was like, I'm going to move home. I called my boss. I had worked at this amazing restaurant in LA. Shout out to Marvin. And I'd been there for 5 years. That they were like my family. And I just, I called them and was like, I'm going to be moving. I'm putting in my 3-week notice basically. And 3 weeks later, pulled into my parents' driveway. 3 weeks after that, cue global pandemic. So the timing was wild, but yeah, that's the base of my story. I didn't go too in detail.
It's unbelievable.
That's wild.
It is so true in life too, that when we get that little nudge of like, this is calling me, it might not make sense. It might not make sense on paper, but I feel in my gut and intuition that this is where I should be being guided. And for you, logically, it didn't make sense. You
Yeah.
had an amazing job, you had a community, you had your close friends, you had an amazing new apartment, you just adopted a dog, you were still pursuing this career in acting, but you had this like subtle gut calling that kept coming up. And what is so fascinating is you ended up following that and you moved home, and then the pandemic was like the earth's or the world sealing in like, yep, this is where you're meant to be. We're going to lock you in here. You're meant to be here. You're here for good now. And then tell us about what happened with the dog, because I
I
think
will.
that
Okay.
is so interesting.
So absolutely. I think that also was just the sort of like dipping the toes into what it feels like in your body to make a decision that is correct for you and that is aligned. And for me, it was this deep feeling of relief. And again, it was just the slight glimmer of it's okay to choose what seems to be the easier choice. I'm using quotey fingers, but that, the easier choice being giving up, again, quotey fingers, giving up my acting career to move home, whatever it is. That was the preview of what it feels like in your body to choose what's right for you. So cut to 2021. I had lived with my parents for a year and a half. We actually got so incredibly lucky and blessed to be able to spend that time together. It was a small pod of my parents, my 2 best friends, and their 7-month-old who I ended up
Oh
nannying
my
for a
gosh.
year and a half. It was so special. And we were so, so, so lucky, to have ended up having that happen. But so in the meantime, when I touched back in Atlanta, my thought was, I will get myself out of debt. I'll sort of collect myself, and then I will go back to Los Angeles. And as a fresh, happy, out of debt, free woman, will then pursue my acting career from that place. And so I had connected with this incredible producer screenwriter. She is wonderful. And she offered me a job with her family in Williamsburg, which would have eventually, like I said, taken me back to Los Angeles. 3 days before I was going to get on a plane to go meet her and her family, Scraps, who's my little dog, he just passed away in August, but really quick tangent on him. I adopted him from my best friend who had to move and couldn't, keep him. Long story long. Anyway, his name is Scraps. And so I had known him his whole life, but I adopted him when he was 8.5 years old. So we had already had a relationship. He was already kind of an adult weirdo, little terrier. He looks like Toto. So everybody can get this vision of what I'm about to tell you. So 3 days before I'm about to get on this plane, Scraps is curled up asleep on the end of my bed. I'm so excited. I've got suitcases packed. He's already a anxious mess. He's asleep. I lean down to kiss him. He turns around and just nips at my nose, takes off the end of my nose. Almost, not all the way, but 12 stitches later.
Oh, yeah.
12 and a half stitches later. 12 stitches later, I am in full blown emotional shock, obviously. Again, I'm supposed to leave for this job in 3 days. I call the woman who I was going to be working for and just said, I think I'm going to need at least a week to figure out what's going on, like what I'm going to do. I mean, I just had Frankenstein across the middle of my face. Bless Scraps. It was not his fault. I just want to say that. He actually changed the entire course of my life because it honestly did take about 10 days for me to just recover emotionally. But then it was the big decision. And here's what I toggled between. Am I trying to take the easy way out by staying in Atlanta? Talking myself into, am I supposed to make this tough decision because it feels tough? This decision to, even though I've got 12 stitches across the middle of my face, even though what I genuinely deep down know I want to do is stay here in Atlanta and see what can happen here, because I felt so good in Atlanta. It was like the first time that I had decompressed and felt slower and felt happy and honestly truly happy, like in the present moment, happy now just to be. I always use this visual, making a cup of coffee. I cannot even tell you, every morning that I would get up and journal and make my cup of coffee was just this like miracle of, oh my gosh, look at the steam coming. I mean, it's so cringy, but I literally would be like crying, making coffee just because I was happy to make coffee, period.
Yeah.
So anyway, when this all happened, the back and forth for me and the making this decision so much harder than it kind of needed to be, but I'm also glad that I did, because now what it taught me again is that feeling of deep relief when I thought about staying in Atlanta versus when I thought about going and taking this job and eventually going back to Los Angeles. It was full body relief versus constriction, fear that I felt like I needed to walk through. You know what I mean? It was like, but you need to push yourself to walk through the fear and face your fears and all the things, right? That when I finally just surrendered and said, this is what I really want, is to stay here and see what happens. I mean, truly, really and truly, everything opened up after that decision. And I, called the woman who I was going to be working for, and she was so lovely. I mean, I could cry even thinking about how lovely she was. And it truly was just, I decided to stay home and effectively give up this dream that I had been pursuing since I was 12 years old for good. And I say give up now with no negative connotation. It's surrender. It's letting it go, right? I think there's so many reframes for giving up. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I'm living a completely different life now than I could have ever envisioned when I was 34 years old, starting this meditation journey to figure out happiness. I'm now 42, living with my phenomenal boyfriend in Atlanta, pursuing full-blown self-employment now, something that was a kind of deep down dream that I never even knew I had until I uncovered it. And yeah, all because I really did honor and go towards that relief feeling, as opposed to talking myself into doing something that I knew I didn't really deeply want, but that I thought I should do.
Yeah. I have a question for you on that because I think that's a fear versus intuition.
Mhm.
I think so often in our lives, it can be very hard to decipher something that is calling us based on anxiety or fear or should can feel familiar or hard to dissociate the difference between that feeling and something that we're driven to that is like actually in our highest good.
Mhm.
Like a gut feeling and anxiety can sometimes be hard to differentiate between. Like, I should go out with this group of people because I haven't seen them in a long time and I want to I committed to this. I don't want to let them down versus my really good friends are going to understand that tonight, I didn't sleep well. I just need a night off. Something as small as that to something as big as like I'm looking at a new role and I'm getting just a really off feeling about the management team or the culture or if it's really the right path for me versus I'm just scared because it's uncomfortable and maybe it is for my highest good. I have just never done something like this before. Maybe I don't trust myself deep down that I could do this, but if I push myself, I'm going to open up myself to, a new world and kind of move
Gosh.
into an experience that is right for me. How do you differ? And I think so often we associate comfort with like, especially for the type A perfectionist hustlers, chasers of our dreams, comfort is sometimes associated with like slacking off or not trying as hard. And sometimes, at least in my head, if I think of a Saturday where there's work to do and I'm like, no, I'm just going to take the Saturday off and like go for a really long walk and like lie on the floor with my dog and go out to dinner and linger with my friends for hours. There's this, but you're trying to build a business. Like you're not going to build a successful business unless you work all day. And it feels like slacking off. But sometimes when we make that intuitive choice that our body and that our soul is craving, it actually aligns us more in the direction that we want to go, even if it doesn't look like that on the surface. So
Mhm.
how maybe you didn't know at the time that you were making a really aligned choice. Like maybe you did feel guilt and shame being like, I'm taking the easy route when it turned out, no, you were following your gut and it really opened you up to this incredible next chapter of your life. But
Yeah.
how do you in like the day to day now differentiate between what is fear and what is intuition?
Gosh, I love everything you just said because it's so true. And I think it's a constant learning. And I always say I love getting older because I really do think that wisdom comes into play with figuring those things out, with really understanding that voice, your fear versus your truth. And I really think a couple of things. One, we're all incredibly detached from our own magic and from the magic of being alive. And I'm sorry to say, but I'm not at all. Magic exists just by waking up every day. We have such a deep connection to ourselves and to what's true. And we just have been so conditioned out of believing that. And it's really a shame. And I think that we all, though, can quite quickly, once we sort of start tuning in and really noticing and becoming aware, tap back into what that really feels like. For me, and I do think it's a little bit different for everybody, but I think that it's the difference of trusting that you really do know, and you have to learn how to trust. So I say that with full knowledge that it's not necessarily as easy as it sounds. However, I do think we make things a lot harder than they need to be by, really thinking that our minds and our thoughts are everything and that they know everything. Your mind is going to try and work things out forever and ever and ever and ever. Your mind, your brain, whatever you want to call it, can never have all the answers. It's very limited in what it knows. Your intuition and your body is what's true, right? This is your groundedness. And this is where I think that deep relief feeling really comes from, at least for me. And again, that relief versus constriction is what I focus on now. It's finding techniques. And also, this is again why I love human design. Once you sort of understand your energy type and your authority, which is how you make decisions, we'll go more into this later. But when you truly understand how you best make the most aligned decisions, you almost give yourself the permission to really lean into that. Now, I believe, Annie, you're a sacral decision maker. Is
Yes.
that correct? Yeah. So that really is a trusting your gut. It is almost like a too good to be true feeling that when you are faced with a decision, you really do get this full body yes or full body no, right? I'm an emotional authority. So I pretty much also get a full body yes or no, but I still need to give myself some time to get to an emotional sort of neutral as much as possible to make a really calm, confident decision on something. And I'm saying all that just to say it's it is a practice, right? Of getting to know really what that feels like. But I think that again, fear is always going to sound like chatter And
Mhm.
it's like, it doesn't stop. It always has an answer. Whereas, or not, not an answer, but like it always has something to say. It's always
Yeah.
going to get the last word, you know? Whereas your intuition, your truth is calm and it is pretty much always saying the same thing, you know? And it's just sort of,
Right.
right? It's like understanding what that feels like for you. And it also does requires overcoming some conditioning because we are very, very, very conditioned to think that things have to be very hard. And this is, of course, acknowledging that the world is very hard. But I think that if we can relieve ourselves as much as possible and take care of ourselves as much as possible, that's how we really start the healing. And I did also want to say, this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's just coming to me because as you were talking about that kind of hustle and that hard work and constantly going and not letting yourself sort of stop this chatter constantly going. If I don't keep going, if I don't, if I turn off, I'm going to miss something or whatever your brain is telling you. If you're doing work that you truly love, it doesn't feel like hard work. I mean, it's hard work. You're putting in a lot of hours and all of that. But if it's what's truly aligned for you and your natural spectacular gift, right? Then that's different than going against what your body and your sort of intuition are telling you.
Right.
And that's where that kind of like friction comes from
Right.
because you're betraying yourself
Yes.
ultimately.
Yes. That's such a good point. Another point that you made that was really interesting is the mind never shuts off. And I think even in the midst of transitions in life or really hard times, or you lose a job, or you're going through grief, or you're in a lot of uncertainty, it
Mm,
is so easy. The mind wants to protect us and keep us safe so often that
yeah.
it's always scanning for threats. Or like maybe it's so funny. My coffee, I go to bed thinking about my coffee. Like I went about it last night. I have like the straws I like for the ice. I make my own cold brew. It is the best moment of my day. And it's so easy when like life is chaotic or uncertain or uncomfortable. Our brain thinks that it's protecting us by not letting us feel any joy. And I'll notice that like in my hardest times or in the biggest transitions in my life, my kind of barometer is I'm not as excited about coffee. Literally, aside from our conversation today, this morning I was kind of in a mood and I was thinking about it. I have a lot of changes, big changes going on in my life right now. I was on the phone with my mom, I'm like, "I don't even care about my coffee." And I'm like, that's always my reminder that, yes, we're in change. Yes, there's chaos. Like, yes, life isn't always comfortable. We
Yeah.
can always choose to experience joy. And
Yes.
why it's hard is I think that joy is the ultimate surrender. Because when you're experiencing joy, you're experiencing gratitude, and that is like the most present that you can be. Fear in your analytical mind keeps you hyper fixated on overanalyzing the past. Maybe you don't want something to happen again. So the more I think about it, the more I ruminate, the more I ingrain it in my brain, and I'll never see that threat again, or I'll always act differently. And then anxiety is fear of a future that you don't feel capable that you can
Right.
control. We can't control anything. So anxiety is always like exerting this false sense of control over the future. But when we're really uncomfortable or we're really anxious, ruminating about the past or fearing the future, we rob ourselves of the present. And I think that the first kind of, I don't know, note that you get to yourself if you're not living in the present and you're living in like this fear and your mind is trying to control things or hyperanalyze something is that you stop appreciating those small moments. And
Mm,
like no matter what transition or chaos or uncertainty or discomfort or in our lives, like
right.
we always have the small joyful moments. And I think when we choose to lean into them and choose to say like, yeah, I'm like stressed about work or I'm going through a breakup or I'm moving cities and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you can still choose to enjoy your coffee. You can still choose to enjoy the weather on your morning walk. You can still choose to totally disconnect and laugh your ass off with your friend. Like that is a choice that you make and joy is always within you. So that is just you made me think about that. So I had to share that.
That. I'm so glad you did. I love that. I completely agree. I think that's so beautiful. Also, kind of add on top of that, there's also a way to allow yourself the permission to feel like crap too, you know?
Yeah.
So even if you don't want to find the joy in that moment, there is almost a humor in stepping outside and going, I'm going to be a toddler right now. That's fine. I'm pissed off. I don't want to do this. I feel awful. Everything's going wrong. There's also a way to sort of look at that. And I think it really does all boil back down to that surrender piece that we've sort of started talking about a little. I think that there's so much value in going through kind of the struggle and the muck of it, because I really do think that by contrast, we learn. And so it's almost like you can't have that full surrender feeling without having gone through all the things that you've gone through and having pitched the fit or whatever it is. I think I'm segueing a little bit here, but I just think that part of the process of, let's just use manifestation, looking for love, career, or whatever, you want it really badly, right? You want it now. Why can't I have it now?
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of have to, or I don't know how to avoid that part of the process of pitching the fit, kicking and screaming and wanting the thing now, to then get to the point where you're so sick of yourself or sick of being in the low point that sort of the only choice you have left is to just put your hands up in the air and say, just show me.
Yeah.
Just show me what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And that's also happened to me a few times where I have wanted something so badly and been such a brat about it that it truly was not until I let go of that desperation. And it is almost like you just decide, I want that. I want to have a beautiful, healthy relationship. And then you give up on who, when, how, all of that, right? And you go live your life and you go enjoy your coffee again and you go laugh with your friends and you fill your life full of all the things that you love. Again, I know it sounds easier said than done, because when you are down in the muck and the mire of it and feel like everything is bad, it can feel like that will never end. But I would argue that there is always still a small piece of you that knows, I don't really want to feel like this, And it's holding on to that higher self, intuition, whoever that is for you. It's holding on and listening to that does eventually throw the rope down the well and help you to climb out,
Yeah.
And that's really what surrender is to me. It is truly letting go and trusting. The how is not up to me.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, if it was, it wouldn't be nearly as glowy and spectacular as it turns out to be anyway, because being surprised is also awesome,
100%. Yeah. I feel like, especially with relationships, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody says is it comes the second you
Oh,
stop. But it's also, if you have a desperation of like,
yeah.
I need to be married by 30 and a kid by 32, it's like you're trying to play God. Like, it's
Girl,
just,
I know, but you know what's so obnoxious? And people say it all the time. It's like, when you finally stop looking, it shows up. That is true is so annoying, because when you're in it, you're like, how am I going to stop thinking about this thing that I desperately want?
right.
Do you know what I mean? I kind of had a reframe that was like, it's not that it's when you stop looking, it's when you decide, I'm going to have that,
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be now, but it's going to be at some point, because I deeply know that I want that. Then you let it go. That's when maybe not tomorrow, but in 6 months. And also go clean out your closet, because that will also bring around your manifestation.
Oh.
Go clean something out. Go make room physically. I swear there is magic. There is magic in making space.
It's actually really funny you say that, because yesterday morning, for absolutely no particular reason, at 7:30 a.m., I cleaned out my shoe closet. I
There you
couldn't
go.
tell you why. I
You
just
got a
wanted
new
to
pair of
organize
shoes
my room.
coming. Maybe you've got a date coming. Something's on the way. I guarantee.
I love it. I love it. It's really true though, and I think that more tactically, like when you go and you meet somebody and
Mhm.
they are so confident in themselves, they're present, they're real, they're authentic. It is like, I always say authenticity is like the most confident and attractive characteristic in someone,
Ugh,
when they are so brutally honest and grounded in who they are. And when you trust, like, you know your worth, all of the things that you desire are already part of your path. And the most fun part is you have no idea when they're going to come. You can meet someone
yeah.
at a concert, you can meet someone at a coffee shop, boarding a plane, like your best friend or your husband doesn't matter, or like your new
Can't
boss,
wait on them.
business
That's
partner.
happened for me. Okay. You could wait on him. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Hated serving for my whole life. Didn't hate it, but didn't want to be doing it for as long as I was. In my last 2 years as a server, I waited on Alan, and that's how we met.
So I wanted to ask you about that.
Oh, sure.
Talking about on the note of surrender.
Yeah.
So you said to me, as soon as you released your control and you trusted that the things that were right for you would enter on their timeline in
Mhm,
an aligned way,
mhm.
accelerated and everything started opening up.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit. Alan, and then definitely, your pivot into human design.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay, perfect, yeah. Okay, so scraps bit off the end of my nose. A quick reminder.
Your nose looks
Well,
great. You made a full
thank you.
recovery.
Guess how lucky I was? My ER doctor was a plastic surgeon.
Oh my God.
I got so lucky, you can barely
The
see the scar.
stars are just aligning and aligning here.
I'm telling you what. Um, so Scraps does his thing, changes the course of my life. Bless him. Love that dog. Okay, so back up real quick just to say that during 2020, because I was basically surrounded by my parents, two friends, and a baby, I spent a lot of time alone and I spent a lot of time meditating and journaling. And that is what works for me. I do want to point out quickly whatever works is what works. Do you know what I mean? Like going for a walk could be the same as like sitting down and meditating every day, but meditation is a big part of my life. And so I think that I was just already sort of in this decompress sort of state. And then when the thing happened with Scraps and I had to make that decision, again, picking that relief over that constriction, that was the turning point. From there, I wrote in a journal, and I just found this in like March of 2021. And again, I had been curious and had known about human design for about 5 or 6 years at that point. But I wrote in a journal, learn human design. This came to me in a meditation. I just found that like three weeks ago. I was cleaning out a closet and found that, which is so wild and so magical. I'm telling you, magic is real. So found that. So that's just a little preview to what we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so that was in March. Then kind of like as the world started to sort of open back up a little bit, I realized, okay, I'm gonna need to get a job. I did not want to go back into restaurants, but it was my skill. I had been doing it for, 12 years at that point. It's how I've met all of my best friends, truly. My brother and sister-in-law are chefs. Like I'm surrounded by restaurant people. Bless it. I love restaurants. But I had to bite the bullet and be like, you know what? I'm going to go get another serving job. It's just what I have to do. I got to get back out there. So I ended up working in a restaurant, met incredible people, as I always do. So that kind of set up my community in Atlanta. And then about 6 months after, I waited on Alan, who is now my boyfriend of almost 4 years. And, it was just one of those things like spark. He slid into the DMs a few months later, and then we went on a date like a month later, and the rest is history, as they say. But to circle it back to the surrender piece, I was having a blast, I felt so fresh and new. I had given myself this clean slate. I had decided you are allowed to stay in Atlanta. You are allowed to let go of this dream. You're allowed to just see what happens. I don't have to be so in control of getting my, headshot out to a million places and finding an agent and networking and doing all these things that drained the crap out of me. I mean, hilariously now too, I think about it, I hated auditioning so much. Just hated it. But that's a major piece. If you
Yeah.
want to get a break as an actor and book work, you got to audition. So even looking at those little pieces of, wow, I really hated that. How nice of myself to allow myself to let that go, right? And then see all of these other things sort of fall into place. Again, I waited at this restaurant for about 3 years and then finally got to that place where I was really sick of hearing myself complain about doing the same thing, about whatever it was, complaining about where I was and knowing that I wanted more and feeling really ready for more. And this is about a year ago, I really started to focus in on my human design. I don't know what clicked about it. Again, I've been sort of very casually studying it for years and have always been very drawn to any sort of kind of, divination system or tell me more about who I am. And I really sort of paying attention to, I'm a manifesting generator and I'm an emotional authority. So I am very much someone who likes to have multiple passions and to do work that I really love doing and that really lights me up. And to make a decision, I need to take a little bit of time, right? To, like I said, get to this very calm, confident place. And so Around this time last year, I decided I'm really ready to leave serving. I'm ready. And I got calm about it. I gave myself time. In that time, my little bridge job showed up, which was working a front desk at a Pilates studio, but it wasn't, waiting tables. So it was like this very kind of welcome change. And I started doing event assistant work. This all started when I decided I'm ready to leave the restaurant. I put in my notice. These other little jobs showed up and I took that. And then a few months after that, my friend Alicia, who's actually an energy worker too, sent me like an Instagram story. This woman, Katie Irvine, who's at Sort of Spiritual at Instagram, was giving away like a handful of scholarships for her human design school. You had to apply. And I remember she sent it to me while I was sitting at the Pilates studio desk. And I was sort of a little bit in a like, not crisis, but I was very much like, what am I doing? I'm basically just feeling like I'm waiting table sitting down now, like I knew it was a bridge job. I knew it had a purpose, but I was still so sort of like practiced at feeling like I hate my jobs. I don't want to do jobs in that kind of, headspace. It knocked me out of that really. I applied for the scholarship. I won the scholarship. This was in spring of this year to start learning not only about this thing that I'm incredibly passionate about already and incredibly interested in, but now I'm learning how to share that with other people and give readings to other people. And it was like being given a key to this career door that I did not even realize existed. And it didn't really sink in for me until a few months into really learning this. I did the school for about 5 to 6 months, learned everything. It was a lot of work, but it was amazing. And that's when I realized, and this was only, truly, Annie, this was 2 months ago, that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm now set up in a place where I can launch my own business and I can continue. And like I said, I'm a manifesting generator. So having a lot of different careers is kind of ideal for me. I can really go full force into my event assisting and into my human design and focus on my writing even more. It's so funny that I always forget to mention my writing. I actually said that to you in a side note. I've had a Substack for 3 years that I write memoir posts on weekly. And that's a piece that I do want to swing back to really quickly, just to honor this piece of me that was another huge launching pad, which was proving to myself that I could be consistent in something was a very important piece for me personally. And about 2.5 years ago, I said, I've had a blog on and off for 17 years. I was back in the 2008 blog era, obsessed, had a blog but never was consistent. Right. And so 2.5 years ago, I said, I really want to do this and I want to prove to myself that I can do this. And I did. And I have weekly posted on my Substack since then, over 2 years ago. That was another huge piece that fits into that kind of self-worth bucket that gives you that sort of courage to take the leaps. And I think that since I took that leap of saying, I'm done with restaurants, I'm ready to be done with that, it's like I've been offered opportunity to just keep leaping into what's the net? I don't know. It's the trust, right? It's the surrender. It's the letting go and it's the seeing what happens. And I will just keep reminding there is so much magic in that surrender and in that trust and allowing for that to be true. I think it just infuses your life with with gratitude, really, right? It ultimately is what it is. But also it truly, when I look back on this last year, I almost cannot believe that I am where I am now. And I've heard people say that and talk about their journeys like that before and been maybe envious and wanted that so badly. And again, it wasn't until I just kept letting go and kept letting go and kept letting go that now I'm sitting here talking to you about my story. You know what I mean? It's wild. It's like completely wild.
But I think and I have one more question for you on surrender, and then I'd love to dive into human design. But a quick side note is I think that all of these things are meant to happen to us in life. Like when
Sure.
you're working at the Pilates studio and like this isn't my career, this isn't where all of my passions lie, but you're content, you're happy, you're embracing it, you're excited for what's next. You know that it's a bridge to something incredible and that something
Yeah.
incredible is going to find you because your energy is so aligned and receptive.
Mm,
And I think that when we hold our breath or we live in angst or we're like, I won't breathe or experience joy until this is solved and I have to figure this out now, we're actually like these opportunities, these people, these career opportunities, these serendipitous run-ins are totally missing us. And like, I do believe in life
yeah.
that your course is usually predetermined. Like all of
Mhm,
the things meant for you are going to find you. You can't miss what's meant for you. But I do believe that you can delay them if
mhm.
you don't let go. So if
Yeah.
you're clenching and you're tense and your energy is not open to receiving, you're still, going to marry that incredible person, but it might be delayed. You're
Mm,
still going to launch that business, but it might be delayed. I think that we can kind of get in our own way by trying to control something that we just can't control. But when we let go and surrender and we're open to receiving, then we are, I always explain it. People are like, I don't really understand what you mean by that. And it's
mm,
like, all right, you're in the midst of change. You lost your job. You lost your relationship. You're moving cities. Your friend group is shifting. Like
mm,
life is hard. Maybe your parents are getting older. Like you're in the middle of turbulence. You might get up that day and be really anxious in a really bad mood. You might go to Starbucks and get your daily coffee and like not even look at who else is in the room, kind of grab your coffee with a quick thank you and like run up and get on your laptop.
mm,
Your energy is like, yeah, life's hard right now. Or yeah, that's like an unopened tab that I haven't solved yet. Or I'm really anxious about something or something isn't going my way, but I'm still going to choose to experience joy. And you walk into Starbucks and you grab your coffee and you're in a great mood and you comment on the woman's sweater and you start having a conversation and then you realize they're your neighbor and they know this person and then you go to Pilates and then your world opens up. Like you literally miss opportunities when you're closed off from
mm.
receiving. So that was just
Very
like,
wise. Very wise, very true, and I always visualize a house. I always use a house analogy when I'm talking about basically anything in life, but it's like, think of all the doors and windows being shut closed as
yeah,
opposed to a beautiful home with, like, open windows and open doors and what that feels like.
yeah.
Just that's it. Yeah.
Choose to let light in and the
100%.
light guides you. But I was gonna ask you my last question for you before we dive into human design is that is like how I view surrender. Curious when you're working at the Pilates studio or even the restaurant, you knew that the restaurant industry is like not really where you wanted to be full time,
Right.
but you knew it was a bridge to the next thing. And you went in with an energy and an openness and you embraced it and you made all these friends. You even ended up meeting your boyfriend. What did that feeling of surrender feel like to you? Was it a very
Mm,
conscious choice or
mm.
was it just a shift in your perception?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it had to be conscious because I was so practiced at the opposite, right? I was so practiced at being annoyed, fed up, wanting to do something else. Why am I doing this? That I did have to consciously. And for me, it was what kind of self respect are you exhibiting by being a brat and being annoyed? Like you are spending your time here and your time is so precious and so valuable. And I get to choose at least the energy and the attitude that I bring to my time. And again, this doesn't mean that I was like happy, shiny, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here every day. But at least I could be aware that if I was being the dark thundercloud walking into work and like screaming and being a brat, like that's how I'm spending my time. Right. So at least making myself aware that I'm spending precious moments of my life being, I would say a curse word, but I won't, being a jerk, you know? I think that making the conscious choice to say, how I spend, let me at least spend the time that I am here being open, loving, and doing the best that I can. I think that was really the shift for me, you know? Does that answer your question?
100%.
Okay, good. I
100%.
couldn't remember if I was talking about surrender or because it's so funny. I look back on 15 years in the restaurant industry and so much of it being spent wondering when the next, when I was not going to be serving.
Right.
That it is funny to be like, wow, I'm actually not serving anymore. It's so wild. I'm so grateful that I did. But yeah, it's
It got you and that's why I always we're gonna get into human design, but the
yeah,
last
yeah.
thing too is, like, I do, like, mentoring. I mentor young women
Mhm.
in
Oh,
college or out of school, whatever, and there's such a and I think this is a societal pressure, but there's so
yeah,
much franticness around what is my passion? What is my purpose? What is my career? And I'm like, you might have a million iterations of your career. You
so
might try something that has absolutely no relevancy, so you think now to what you end up building or the people that you end up working for, vertical that you end up moving into, but it all makes sense. Whether you meet somebody or you learn something or you learn something, I always say the worst job experience I ever had was the most pivotal job that I ever had because
Ugh,
it completely transformed my values. I had to build inner self confidence. It viewed how I vet my next opportunities, what I'm looking for, what I value. That experience really told me that like culture and who I work for, I want to emulate the people that I work for both on a professional and a personal perspective. And if I don't, it's not the right opportunity. Like,
yeah,
sometimes we get so caught up in well, is this it? Is this my purpose? Is this my career? And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's part
yeah.
of your story and it will all make sense. The dots always connect in hindsight.
The puzzle pieces come together. That's what it feels like. You spend your 20s gathering and 30s gathering up all these puzzle pieces, and then you kind of start putting them together a little bit.
Yeah.
And the pieces that, you know what I mean? It's like the lost red piece that you're like, I'm so glad I had that experience. I used to be
Yes.
so envious of people who just, because I was so focused on acting, I was so envious of my coworkers who could just be open and let their life kind of unfold,
Yeah.
and let these passions, they just went towards what they were interested in. And I was like, gosh, what must that feel like?
Right.
It's incredible what that will get you if you just go towards what you're drawn to, which
Yeah.
is a perfect segue for human design, actually.
So give us the human design 101. What is human design?
Yeah, okay. So human design it's a channeled system. And I always say this, I actually I kind of have borrowed this from Erin Claire Jones, who is an absolutely phenomenal human design teacher, and she's got a book out. She's just amazing. She always stresses how even though it has like a woo-woo sort of like, it's a channeled system. It has such practical application that it really is illuminating for so many different kinds of people.
Mm.
So, what is human design? It's a channel system that's a combination of kind of like four different like ancient wisdoms, or I guess divination systems. Chinese I Ching, we've got Kabbalah tree of life, we've got astrology, and then we also sort of have like the chakra sort of centers. And it's like a synthesis of all of this. And essentially what human design tells you is how your energy works and how you kind of best make the most aligned decisions in your life. It's
Right.
like a blueprint for your soul's journey on earth. And it's honestly what I find is that generally when I'm giving someone a reading, I'm telling them things they already know, or at least deep down know about themselves. And it always feels very validating. And once you're validated, it's like you have permission to celebrate that
Yes.
about yourself, right? So we also call human design the science of differentiation. The idea being that every person is just as special as the next. And we all, in our sort of uniqueness, have a place and a purpose. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately, is that when you are sort of naturally gifted at something, you don't realize that that is special to you because you kind of almost assume that everyone can do that thing or understand the world in that way. And it's
Mm.
just not true. Everyone really is specifically gifted with their view of the world. And that is so important. It just makes up another color of the prism of the whole, collective sort of oneness of everything, if you really want to get into it. But it really and truly at its core is about honoring yourself for who you are and really deconditioning from who you've been told that you should be. And when you can really start to do that is when that friction really does lift and you do sort of get to live more into that flow. And it really is quite simple. Now there's like, the kind of like what I offer in my kind of foundational readings, the like 4 or 5 kind of pieces that are the easiest to sort of dive into and start experimenting with your own design. The whole system goes into everything. I mean, gifts, challenges, sort of themes. It's not really a predictive, modality necessarily or really at all. It's more like a mechanical, truly how your aura and your energy just function.
Give us and I think that it makes sense when you get a reading. Like, when you did
Yeah,
your reading for me, I'm
sure.
like, "Yes, yes, yes, yes," and it was so validating, as you said. One of the things that you told me is that I have a strong gut intuition, and I've been told my whole life that I'm impulsive, but to be
Mhm.
totally honest with you, I don't really think I've ever made a decision impulsively that I regret. Like, I think I know very quickly, and my parents, if I'm listening, it's something that I find annoying, but it's always like, "You're so impulsive, you need to sleep on that," and I'm like, "No, I don't." Like, and it was so validating for me. But I think it can feel abstract until you've had a
Mhm.
reading and you really understand
I agree.
how these principles can guide you. maybe if you want to use yourself, or I'm happy if you want to use me, but as an example of some things that you learned through your human design reading and how you tactically implement them into your life.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a common misconception is that it's like energy work. So it's
Mhm.
not like an in-person thing and it's not, like Reiki or anything like that. It's very much all of my sessions are virtual. So it's just truly you look up your design online like you would your astrology chart. So again, I just want to say this information is so accessible now too, which is awesome. You can Google human design chart and look this up for yourself. So the key place that we want to start is at our energy type. And I'll go with yours, which you're a generator. I think I can actually pull yours up right here. You're a generator, yes, but now I can't see you.
I can
I
see
want to see your
you're
beautiful face. But so we'll start with energy type, which again, I use the house analogy all the time. Your energy type is sort of like the basement or like the cornerstone of your house that you just build all of your fine, beautiful details on top of. But your energy type is basically just like it sounds, how your energy functions in the world. You are a generator. Generators and manifesting generators, which is what I am, we make up about 70% of the population. We are the great workers of the world. This is where the conditioning immediately starts to come in because a lot of times people think of work as hard, as struggle, as strife, as hustle, as I don't want to do that, right? But when we're doing work that we love, kind of like we talked about before, when we are going towards the things that really, really light us up, and this is very true for you as a generator, when you run towards what turns that sort of sacral gut fire life energy up, is when you're like the Energizer Bunny. You're exactly what you sound. You're the generator of energy for the entire collective. So you going towards the things that you love. And again, I think that there really is almost a quality of too good to be true about all of this, but it's a shame that there is. And this is what we're going to work towards kind of moving away from and healing from, really. When you are leaning into your generator ness and again, going towards those things that light you up, that's what's turning that fire up, right? And for a manifesting generator, it's going towards the multiple passionate things that sort of light,
Huh.
right? It's like I can be doing my, event specialist work over here and then doing a human design reading the next day and then writing my Substack over here. And it's like doing all of these different things that really are going to satisfy that sort of multi-passionate manifesting generator energy. I'll just do a quick overview of the energy types so we kind of
Yeah,
all know.
that'd be
There's
awesome.
5 different, yes, that everyone in the collective sort of falls into. So I've gone over the generators and the manifesting generators. Then there's the projectors. They are the ones who just sort of they deeply understand and know humans. They can really see how people work and they function really as the guides of humanity and the people who can really see kind of the bird's eye view of how things could be and are very much drawn to helping people, right? And guiding people. Now, where I said the generators and manifesting generators, they have this self-sustaining life force energy that gets lit up going towards, or when they go towards the things that light them up most. Projectors do not have the same quality of energy. Projectors require a lot more rest. And this is generally where they are most conditioned out of their energy type is because we're all conditioned to hustle and work hard and do all this. This just is not how a projector's energy works in the world. Again, a lot of this is quite general and every person is an individual. That's the whole idea of human design. But we say projectors have about 3 hours of working energy a day. And then they literally, when they lay down, it's like their whole chart even changes. It's just like horizontal is great for a projector. But again, they are the guides. They're kind of like the lighthouses, right? They're there to sort of be the light guiding, not the ones kind of down in the water getting the ship into the shore, right?
Hmm.
Then we've got manifestors. Manifestors, wow, they're amazing. They're so sharp. They've got this really like just they get an idea, they initiate. They're the ones who they see it. They see how it is. And oftentimes manifestors again are so conditioned out of their type because it is such a like I don't know if impulsive is the right word, but it's like an immediate like understanding of how something could be or having an idea, this is how we should do this, right? And because they don't realize that not everyone functions like that, it's almost like they're conditioned out of believing that this is literally their purpose. So the ones that really kind of supply the collective with the ideas to move us forward, those are the manifestors, right? So they're quick. Their energy sort of works in spurts and sprints. It's like this inspiration comes in, they know it, they go towards it, right? And then you've got your reflectors, which are only 1% of the population, small. These are, again, exactly how they sound. Reflectors are here to truly reflect kind of the health of the collective. They reflect back to us how we are. Reflectors are these amazing, like magical unicorns. They're so open. They can take in, and again, they've got these like beautiful bouncy auras, thank goodness, that kind of protect them from taking in too much people's energy. But they literally are the ones who show us how we are, right? If a reflector is not feeling well, bless you,
Yes.
then it's a reflection that the tribe is not doing well. And
Mhm.
it's huge, it's like it's a big role to play. But reflectors are just really, the few reflectors that I know are just like the most fluid, incredible, sensitive people. And so those are the energy types that we have for each
Amazing.
type. Yes.
And you can find it online.
You
Work
can.
with Brittany if you want the
Absolutely.
in-depth analysis, but you can give me a snapshot of your, of
Yeah.
which one you are online. So, explain how we can apply maybe, like, 1 or
Yeah.
2 examples of how you can apply these learnings into your daily life.
Sure. And I really should have gone kind of more into this while I was saying each type, but each type has its own strategy. So when we say experiment with your human design, the three main things that you need to know are your energy type, your strategy, which each energy type has its own strategy, and then your authority. And your authority is basically how you make the most aligned decisions. And I won't go into all of the authorities because there's like 7 different ones. And again, look this up online because you can see or get a reading, but you really can go so in depth on all of this information. So with generators and manifesting generators, we are looking to respond. Our strategy is what we would call to respond, which means, so in practical application, a generator is going towards the things that they love to do, right? So you're drawn towards work. You love baking. You really want to, be a baker. Maybe that's what it is, right? So if you can't get a job as a baker right now, you are taking as many opportunities as you can. I'm getting a little off track here, but like you are constantly just responding to these sort of, things. So you see someone who's posting on Instagram. We're looking for, just to keep going with this baking analogy, we're
Making
looking
it
for bakers at B-side, whatever, right?
yeah.
You're going to respond to that. Do I want to do this? Yes or no, right? This is sort of like where then you use your authority, which if it was you, Annie, you have a sacral authority, which is going to be that like pretty immediately like or like that real primal yes or no. So that's when you use your strategy, which is responding to this sort of like outside sort of inspiration or stimulus,
Mhm.
right? And then using your authority, is this a full body yes or a full body no for me? And if it's a yes, it's turning that fire up, you're going towards that. Because again, that's when you're really infusing the collective with all of this like joy, right? And energy, truly. Manifesting generators, same thing. It's responding to all these things outside of us that are filling us up and really turning that fire up. Manifestors, they're initiating and informing. So they're having the idea, they're telling people, this is how things should be done, right? It's informing them how it can get done. And then it's kind of almost like being a part of the process, but it's also like almost like they have the idea, they hand it off, and then the generators and the manifesting generators like get it done. It's amazing kind of how every type sort of has this like piece of the wheel, right? To make it roll smoothly. And then with projectors, their strategy is to wait for an invitation, which can feel very, I think, disempowering almost. There's a lot of like waiting in human design language, but I like to describe waiting as just a different way to talk about living, right? So, like, time is passing anyway. And with projectors, the real idea, in my opinion, is waiting for an invitation basically means you don't need to force yourself out into the world. Like, you build it and they will come,
Yeah.
not build it so they will come, right? So it's like you're doing your thing, you're getting amazing at whatever skill or system it is that you're learning to probably help guide people forward, whatever you're drawn to. And then these invitations just sort of like naturally are like magnetized, right? For reflectors, you're waiting for a lunar cycle for like big decisions. And again, it feels very odd, but like reflectors, I know with reflectors, they just have so much energy that they're taking in all the time. They really need to see something from all different sides before they can really move forward with something, right? Because they can be like a projector one day and a manifesting generator the next day. It's like, let me get really grounded before I move forward with what I think I want to do. So again, I hope I'm explaining this well. Sometimes I
You
start talking about human design and I get so excited that I just start
yeah. You explain it very clearly. I do find the most insightful thing that I took away, and you said this at the beginning of the call when you did my reading, is you affirmed, I was like, yes, 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 that is
Good.
me. You affirm so many things that I feel like people might already know about themselves, but feel like they're wrong for feeling that way, or feel
Yes.
shame, or feel like they shouldn't operate in that way. Like, I think it's a projector that you said that
Mhm.
needs more rest. And
Mhm.
there are definitely people out there, but our culture that need that, and they need that to perform their best and to recharge and to really,
Yes.
live in their authentic self. But we have a society that's like never rest, harder is better. You're gonna fall behind if you take a
Yeah.
break.
Yeah.
So I think
It's the
that
conditioning. It's the
yeah,
conditioning we are constantly sort of up against, and
totally.
human design helps you to detach and decondition from
Mhm.
all of these shoulds and these ideas of what it means to be successful. Again, always circling back to the fact that everyone is equally as special as the next person. And I don't mean that in like the kindergarten way. I truly mean your uniqueness and the things that you are bringing to the world that your soul is here to really just love to do, even if it's, and Jenna Zoe, who again is like the first person that I found out about human design from when I got into To Be Magnetic 7 years ago. She always talks about the color that you bring to the world is so unique and special, right? And it all makes up this like giant prism. And I think that I start to feel very whimsical when I talk about it in that way. But if we want to get practical about it, the world is crazy, to say the very least. And everyone is so hell bent on their way being the way, right?
Mhm.
We all have all these different beliefs. And how can you talk someone out of what they believe?
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? But I think that when you realize, one, that you're a part of a whole and that what you're bringing is so important. You don't have to compete with other people at that point, right? You get to just go be who you are. And that's what I love about human design, exactly what you said. When you're validated in who you are and how you function, you get the permission to just go be that and really live into that. And that's what we need more than anything is
Yeah.
people who are really being their true, joyful selves. Or even if like you don't have to be walking around being, like skipping and picking flowers and smelling them and saying hi to squirrels all the time, right? You could be like grumpy outside smoking cigs if you want. And if that's truly who you are and that's where your like deep down relief, joy comes from, great, amazing,
Yep.
right? Yeah, that you really do remove a lot of that friction and strife and pain when you realize that you being you is truly enough. And I mean that in the most true, just grounded way possible. Take away all whimsy and all buzzword from that. Really and truly, being who you are is so important. I feel like an episode of Sesame Street.
No, I mean, I don't know who I was talking about this with the other day, but I think it was honestly my mom. We're talking it's so funny, we're talking about someone who goes to, like, our local Pilates studio, and we
Yeah.
both just, like, love this girl, and she's, like,
Yeah.
a 25-year-old, whatever. It's this energy that I'm like, every time I wanna go to all of her classes, I wanna chat with her after class, she has this energy about her, and I was talking to my mom about it, and I'm like, "What is it that makes her so magnetic, honestly, and that
Yeah.
she is so freaking real. She is so true to who she is."
Ugh.
And then I started thinking about it and I'm like, the people that I love the most, the people that I trust the most, the people that I go to the most
Mm,
are the people that aren't, as you said, they're not always in like a happy go lucky mood or they're not always the smartest or the most successful. But what they are consistently is the most grounded in who they truly
mm.
are. And I think it is one, the most attractive quality in someone. It is the most trusting quality
Yeah.
because you're going to get the real deal. Like they want it or they don't want it. They'll tell it to you straight. I don't think that this is a great idea from my perspective because of this. Or you trust people like that. But also from like a personal standpoint, is I think so often we're conditioned. You said this at the beginning of the call, like, when I lose the weight, I'll get the boyfriend. When I graduate with a certain GPA, I will be accredited to go in this certain career. It's like, if this, then that. But
Yeah.
it's like, if you are who you are at your core constantly, whether that is the body that you're in and you learn to love it, whether that's, the grades that you get or the path that you've had or the preferences that you've had or the decisions that you make. Like maybe your friends like to go out all the time and you don't really like to go out all that time. The time. If you stay grounded in who you truly are and you honor that, then your life aligns in the way that is best for you. And if you try and alter yourself by trying to, shrink yourself or get these certain accolades that you think will define your self-worth or change your body to be accepted or say yes to things when you really mean no, then
Yeah.
maybe you get those things that you think you should want, but they're not things that are aligning with who you truly are in your soul and your essence. And
Yes.
over time, they actually move you further away from where you wanna go. So I think for so many reasons, what you said is so powerful. Of
Yeah.
the best thing that you can do for yourself is be your authentic self.
It's authenticity is really what it always circles back to, and I always say this too. I actually think I borrowed this from Jenna Tui as well. You wanna be able to look in the mirror and believe from the bottom of your heart everything that you're saying, and truly believe it, you
Yeah.
know? You need to be able to look in that mirror and believe yourself, and that is authenticity. And when you're bringing that to the world, it's exactly what you're saying. People respond, everything responds, and everything aligns because you take away that sort of veil of the shoulds or the this is amazing and being this weight, eating this way, working out this way, whatever it is. If it's not true for you, it's
Yes.
just piling on this
Yeah.
disguise of not, it's just not real.
Yeah.
I use this analogy too quite a bit, which is I have a friend who's the most amazing. She's like the most amazing, just wine savant in the world. She wears black linen like every day. She wants to take away that energy that you would take making the decision, what am I going to wear every day,
Yeah.
right? Out of her life. Great. You've got that energy to put towards something else. I think of human design that way as well. It's sort of like once you know yourself and you really get practiced at what that feels like and that authenticity, it's like you get to take that energy that you're using to spend on who am I? What am I going to be? How should I be? Do I need to be like that person? It's like you get to hang that up, you know? And again, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect every day, but it's so helpful. I think of human design as just another tool in your toolbox of understanding yourself and of becoming your truer, more aligned and more authentic self. There's so many ways to the truth. And I use, 10 different tools all the time, right? Human design is just so specific and so practical and so powerful. And again, like we've both said 1,000 times now, being granted that permission through validation is just wonderful. It really is. It's really cool, honestly. That's my favorite part is when I'm doing a reading for someone who I'm like, wow, that's cool that you signed up for a reading, 50-year-old man. I'm so
Mhm.
happy to have something resonate so deeply where it's like someone feels seen, and being
Yeah.
seen is so important.
So
We
important.
all deserve that, right? So yeah,
I
I love
love
it.
I had a reading from Brittany, and I encourage everybody to go get one because it was absolutely incredible and so validating in so many ways.
I'm so glad to hear that. I really am.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing. We
Oh,
have to wrap, but I'd love to end with one question and then we'll share where everybody can find you.
sure.
But I'd love to just ask every guest, what is one thing that you do every day that makes you feel your best?
Gosh, really and truly, it is exactly what you and I have talked about. The coffee obsession, it doesn't
You say that. I knew you
you
were going
know
to.
it because it is, and it doesn't have to be necessarily my cup of coffee, but it is taking the moment to notice, right? Exactly where I am, at least one moment a day. To really, because when you really notice something like this ceramic gourd that's sitting next to you, right? Just taking the moment to look at that and be like, that's right there. Whoa, I'm immediately in my body. I'm in the present moment. I'm breathing. Everything's okay, right? Presence, at least for a moment a day, I would say is the most important thing. And it's usually around my coffee in the morning,
Love
obviously.
that. I love that. Oh my God, it's so true. Another really good way to, like, how do I even be present? Is to like look for everything pink in a room or look
Oh,
for
I
everything
love the
green.
color walks that everybody's
Yeah.
taking now.
Yeah.
I love
Color
that.
walk. Yeah.
I think it's so cute too. I
Yeah.
love that. I think it's yeah,
It's so
yes,
cute. But it's a really good tip. And
it is.
I feel like sometimes we can go a whole day and realize we were never in our bodies and totally in our mind. It's a
It's the
very
same as,
powerful
like, getting
shift.
to the end of the day and being like, "I did not take 1 sip of water today. What is wrong with me? I had 60 coffees." But yeah,
We drink
presently,
my whole
thanks.
I know. So bad.
I already had 3. I'm gonna
I
get
already had 3.
this.
It's so funny. I'm like the biggest health and wellness guru and like I over
I know
caffeinate
you are.
one vice. And people look at me mortified. They're like, you've had 6 cold brews today and you like have a company that's all around health and wellness. And I'm like, it is my one vice. That and chocolate chip cookies, I will never give up. I want 8
Like,
cold
"Leave
brews
me
a
alone."
day. I will drink 8 cold brews. Like, oh my God, I was in Italy for a wedding, for one of my friend's wedding. And I remember one day I had 9 espressos. Maybe 11. I actually think it was 11. It was like,
Girl, you better
we're at
quit. Said, "You better quit." That
it was like a lot. And we were with all these other people sitting at like lunch or in the afternoon. And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that is, and I'm like, I can't stop. It's just, it is my guilty pleasure and it always will be. But
I
we
love
all
that.
have yours. So we got to lean into our vices.
I validate you in your advice, okay? I
Thank
validate you.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing, Brittany. This has been so, so insightful and such a fun conversation. I'd love if you could just leave the audience with where to find you.
Sure. And the easiest way, if you want to just kind of check out more about human design or book a reading, is through my website, which is brittanyfelton.com, Brittany, Felton, which is Felton.com. Or you can read my Substack, which is called Yeah, I'd Hang Out with Her.
I love
Find
it.
me on Substack. And my Instagram is the same. Yeah, I'd Hang Out with Her with underscores under.
I'm amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. This was
Oh,
incredible, and we will definitely have you back. But thank you, and we will chat soon.
thank you, Annie. This was so fun. I'm just so grateful for you. You're amazing.
Well, you're amazing. Awesome. Talk soon, Brittany.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Let's Feel Good. If today's episode helped you feel more clear, empowered, or inspired to take action on your health, I'd love if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with a friend who's on their wellness journey too. You can find today's show notes, links, and extra resources over on Substack at letsfeelgood.substack.com and follow along on Instagram at Let's Feel Good Club for more real-life wellness tips in between episodes. Because how you live determines how you feel, and we all deserve to feel amazing. See you next time.